Welcome back. Our terrific trio of MPs are here to hold down their party positions and debating in their usually respectful disagreement situation. Stella Ambler is a Conservative MP from Mississauga. Jenny Sims is an NDP MP from Newton North Delta, BC.
You got it
that
right,
eh? Yvonne Jones is the one and only MP representing the Liberals from Labrador. Welcome to you all. I want to talk about this ISIS mission. It got so controversial and somewhat loud in the House of Commons today, and the big concern seems to be whether we have the authorization to go forward, whether it's we don't have UN or we don't have NATO, but we seem to be going because the United States says, well, we're going into Syria, so we're going to go in after them. Yvonne, what's wrong with that?
Well, I think there's a couple of things wrong, notwithstanding the fact whether we have permission or whether we don't. I think the most important factor is where is Canadians here? Where is the benefit for Canadians in launching a combat mission or extending the mission that we're already into? We don't see it as the right approach at this time. We think that Canada has a responsibility in fighting ISIL. There's no doubt about that. But our perspective on how that should be done is quite different from the Conservative perspective. We feel that more needs to be done in targeting refugees. We think there needs to be more done in humanitarian aid. We support the fact that, Canadian military is playing a role in training and in support in that particular way. However, we said back many months ago that we would not support a combat mission. At the time, the Prime Minister said it would not be that, but what we've seen is that it's exactly what we're doing, and now he's asking to extend that into Syria. And, we don't support the Assad movement, and we think this is only going to help him in strengthening his position in Syria, and we certainly don't agree to that.
Your leader called it idiocy today, the Prime Minister's positions on some of this stuff. Why is that his position idiotic in your view?
Well, first of all, I think let's make it clear none of us support ISIS or ISIL. And we realize that it is something that has to be addressed. What we have is a huge difference of opinion as to how that should happen. And, here, if you really look at it, what we're going to be doing is going into a country to fight ISIL. I'm talking about us going into Syria. We haven't been invited into the country. The regime is one of the most heinous regimes when you hear of some of the atrocious acts against its own citizens. And I don't think there's anybody sitting at this table that could defend Assad and his regime. And yet we're going to be going in to fight ISIL, who are fighting Assad. And so really, you have to be careful who you jump into bed with.
Well, we're not allies. We're not going to say we're fighting with Syrian soldiers.
But at the same time, de facto, you strengthen Assad's hold on Syria. But the other thing, Don, I have to mention is, we're members of NATO, we're members of UN. Other countries, even though they're fighting with the US, are not going into Syria because they believe they haven't been invited and they don't have the legal authority. And we have to go back to where is the legal authority that Canada has to go into another country. It's not with UN, it's not with NATO, and it's not good enough to say because US is doing it.
So have fun, Stella. Your Prime Minister's had a good line today. What's ISIL going to do? Have its lawyers call up to protest? But anyway.
That, I thought, was a good line.
Not funny when we're talking about war.
Not funny at all.
Well, neither is using words like idiocy when clearly we're taking action, we're taking a principled stand, and we're doing the right thing. This is a brutal regime. Everyone recognizes it. Canadians understand that the threat is a global one. It's a threat to all of the countries in the world, including Canada. In fact, the threats have been specific to Canada in some cases. And so that's why we put forward, the Conservative government put forward this motion in the House to be debated in Parliament yesterday to continue our airstrikes mission in Iraq and to expand it into Syria. To be clear, Bashar al-Assad has been mentioned here. We have not asked for his approval or consent, and nor will we. That is not the point. We are working with a coalition, an international community community of 60 countries. And you know, they're not all conservative governments. They're all not all like-minded. Most of them are NATO members.
A lot of them aren't going into Syria,
But they're liberal
Syria,
governments. They're
there's only
social
one.
democratic governments. But we're all working together to fight this brutal regime,
All right.
ISIL, and of course,
But you will strengthen a brutal regime.
Our humanitarian
Exactly.
aid and effort is huge in both Iraq and Syria. Canada is a large contributor for clothing, relief supplies, shelter, education, helping millions of victims
But you
of
know,
ISIL.
Quickly.
By going into Syria, knowing the kind of regime that Assad runs and the atrocities committed, really, are we going to be strengthening Assad? These are some big questions
No, we're
to be
fighting
asked, and we're
ISIL,
not going into
and we're
Syria with 60 people,
destabilizing ISIL.
60 countries. We're going in with the U.S.
Good old USA. All right, I want to talk about microbeads.
Oh, my favorite
Excellent.
subject!
Megan
Exfoliation.
Leslie, an
You have
NDP
great
deputy
skin,
leader.
Ron.
Yeah, boom, yeah, right. I need surgery,
What do
not
you use?
microbeads. Megan Leslie got a motion through to basically ban microbeads because
Proud
they're
of her work.
toxic and they cause all kinds of trouble.
Happy to
All right,
support
I'm going to
it.
have you describe what microbeads are and why the concern to get them banned is so pressing.
Well, you know,
Since you didn't
John,
know what microbead was till yesterday, did you,
I
Jane?
learned a lot, and that's one thing we should always never give up on, learning about new things. You know, I'd heard of the term microbeads, but I have to be honest, I didn't exactly know what they were. What it is, little pieces of plastic that are in a lot of our toothpaste, our facial cleansing stuff, some of our cosmetics. And what they do is, you know, they end up in our water systems and they are not good. And they eventually end up as sedimentary on the floor of the St. Lawrence River
Right.
and our lakes.
And the fish eat them
none
too.
of it, and none of it really good. But you know, Don, what I've been thinking about more than anything?
No.
If they're in toothpaste, all of us brush our teeth at least twice a day with toothpaste.
Don't swallow the toothpaste.
And you know what? It's just scary.
Well, to be positive, and like to end these things up, all parties supported this. So
I
Yvonne,
think
guess
that's amazing.
yeah,
Credit
it
to
is.
Megan.
An
and the work
NDP
she's done.
MP, but
Yeah.
it's the response by the government is to Environment Canada that they're going to do a study on this. Was that satisfactory to you, or do you think they should be moving faster?
Well, I think from what I learned yesterday, there's a great deal of information already out there on this, and there was a number of scientific studies that were already quoted yesterday in the House of Commons that are readily available online. The fact that they would want to study it more probably is just a factor to buy time at this juncture. I think most people will agree with the motion that Ms. Leslie put forward. I, for one, look forward to voting for it. And I don't think it's doing any harm to ban it. I think it's doing a lot of good. Cosmetic companies might be a little irritated. It might cause them to have to change, you know, their management plans a little bit. It may affect some revenue flow. But at the same time, there's always going to be demands in the cosmetic industry for good brands. And I think a lot of people who are buying, they also want to buy knowing that they're doing a good deed for the environment. So I don't necessarily see a downside or why the government would want to buy time.
No, it's definitely, that's certainly not all that we're doing, although we were happy to, the Conservatives were happy to support the motion. You know what, this is actually affecting our water supply as well as our fish who eat these and they die, and it's not good for the environment, for our wildlife, for our ecosystems. This is all very important. I know, but the science is actually relatively new and recent. I talked about this in my speech to the House on it yesterday. So Environment Canada is leading in terms of studying the issue, but we're doing more than that. The Environment Minister is also going to have it on the agenda for this summer's meeting of Environment Ministers. We've got we introduced a chemical management plan, and so the assessment of these microbeads is on it. So, well, exactly.
Yeah. It's just not that any of you need these exfoliating creams.
We're going to use ground almonds and
unfortunately,
flaxseed
We're out of
instead.
time, but I want to bring up next Wednesday here on the show because I want to talk about temporary foreign workers with you next week, because that's a big issue. And a week from today is when they got to be out of the country.
The
So.
due date.
Okay, after the break, we will have